now that you've had a understanding of how version control works with Git, you have a conceptual understanding of the different aspects of Git version control, we're ready to put that conceptual learning into practice and really look at how version control works from within Xcode. Now, before we actually begin, we need to make sure that Xcode is set up and ready for us to use with our Git repositories. So first thing you need to do is to go into your preferences, your Xcode preferences, and really ensure that you have your Git account credentials within the list of source control accounts. So you can add your account by clicking on the plus button here and make sure that you click on GitHub. And then you need to add your login credentials for GitHub for it to authenticate you and add your account here. The next thing you need to do is under source control, if you click on Git, just make sure that your author name and your author email address is correct. Once you've done that, there is no save button here. Once you've added the details here and you've configured the account, you can close this window. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is this repository. So you've already been through the process of signing up for a repository. You were given a specific link from GitHub Classroom, and through that link you selected your name from the class roster, and then based on the project that you selected, whether that's a tabbed view or whether it's a single view app, a repository on GitHub was populated for you with the actual project. So this is just a sample project that I've created just for this sake of this demo. You can see here that it's populated with an actual project, and you will see that your repository has been populated with a project, whether that's a tab view app or whether that's a single view app. Okay, you can access your repository from within your GitHub account. So there's a few ways really to bring down this project, because that's what you want to do right now. You want to bring a copy of this project that you already have, this default project, down from GitHub and really have a local copy of it, okay, on your desktop. Remember, local copy is what is on your computer, and your remote copy is what's online. So the way to do that is, well, there's two ways to do it. One way you can do it from within Xcode, or the simple way is just do it from your repository. So you click on clone or download, and you have a few different options here. The best option to choose is actually open within Xcode. Don't download it as a zip file, because what will happen is it will download the project, but it will not retain a copy of the Git version control history. Okay, so make sure that you actually click on open Xcode. If you do click on download zip, that means that you have to reset up the Git version control on a copy of the project. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to just click on open in Xcode, and once you've done that, it's going to ask you, do you want to use this to open up Xcode? And I'm just going to click on yes. So I'm just going to click on that, and we actually added our account. I don't know if you recall previously, we added our account, and you can see here that it's found the repository, and it wants me to save it now. So I'm just going to save it on my desktop, and at this point you can actually change the name of the folder. After this, you cannot change the name of this folder at the top level. You can change, but the folders within do not change, because then it will really mess with the locations of project files, and it will cause all sorts of problems. So at this level, you can actually change the name of the project, the folder rather. Okay, so I'm just going to call it version control demo. Okay, this is an upper camel case, and this is how you should be naming your in this part of your project. So I'm just going to click on desktop, make sure it's here, and I'm going to click on clone. Okay, once the clone has completed, it will just open up the project, and you can actually see here that the project has been cloned, and it's just a simple example. You can see here it has one view controller, it has a storyboard, and that's pretty much all it has. Okay, but it also has all of the version control history. You can see here, this is the history of all of the commits and pushes that I've actually done against the master branch. Okay, so when you clone your project, it will retain the Git history, and that's actually what you want to do. And you can see currently here that I'm on the master branch, okay? And I'll be talking to you shortly about branching. So before we actually do anything with this project, we need to really focus on what we actually want to achieve. So as far as this demonstration is concerned, in terms of showing you one cycle of version control from start to finish, what I actually want to do is add a custom font to my project. It's a typical thing that developers will want to do. They would want to add a custom typeface to a project just to make it unique. It's all part of your design considerations, remember. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a process where I'm adding a font to my project and I'm configuring it. So the first thing I want to do is to download a font. So you can see here that I'm going to click on this window here, and I've already found a font. Okay, from the font, it's called Patchwork Stitchlings. Okay, it's probably suitable for an app for a young child. And I've gone ahead and downloaded this font, and there's two really fonts within this archive, this download. There's this Patchwork Stitchlings.ttf, which is white color, and there's one in kind of in black as well. I actually prefer this white colored font, and I'm going to use this. Your font also, Xcode also supports open type font, so .otf, this is a .ttf file you can see here. So if you've got a font that you've downloaded which is .otf or open type font, it's also perfectly fine to configure within Xcode, and you just need to make sure that you make a minor change when you're configuring font, making sure that you're putting in the correct extension as far as the font is concerned. Okay, so I've downloaded the font, it's on my desktop, and I'm ready to kind of move on to the next part, which is to begin working with version control. So the first thing I want to do is I want to click on the source control navigator here, okay? What I want to do is just kind of expand this menu here, these branches. You can see here that master is the current branch. So the first thing I want to do, remember, whenever you're working on a feature, you don't want to work on the master branch. The master branch should be working at all times. If I was to start changing things on the master and it broke something, then obviously my master branch is not working and it defeats the purpose of having a master branch, right? The master branch should always work. So what we want to do is we want to control click or right click on this, and we want to choose the option of branching from the master. Now, when you select that, what it will do essentially is it will actually create another branch from the master branch. So it will take everything that it has in the master branch and it will branch from that. Okay, so any changes that I've made already to master will be replicated within this new branch. Okay, you're creating a branch from something. Essentially, you're creating a template of the master branch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this configure font. That's the name of my branch. That's essentially what I'm planning to do. And you can see here that I've used lowercase and I've separated the spaces using a hyphen. Again, just stick to this convention, okay, and be descriptive with the branch, but not overly descriptive that you're actually typing in a long sentence. Okay, so short, nice, succinct. It describes what the branch is referring to and what the branch is going to be used for. And I'm just going to hit create. Once I've done that, it creates the branch and it switches to the branch as well. So it's done two things. It's created the branch and it switched to the branch as well. Now, one thing you have to be aware of at this moment in time, this branch does not currently exist on your online repository, right? It says there's one branch here. If I was to refresh this page, it will still say that there's one branch here. Okay, the branch does not exist. The reason why it doesn't exist is it's because it's created locally and we haven't pushed and committed any changes yet to our remote repository. Okay, so that you need to make sure that you understand that the branch does not exist currently yet, and we will be pushing out changes shortly. So if I was to go back and click on the source control navigator, it still looks the same, right? Nothing has changed as far as your project is concerned, and everything is as it was. Okay, but you know that if you click on the source control navigator, you know that the branch has actually been changed, and you need to make sure that whenever you're working on your project that you're not working on your master that you're working on a specific branch. Okay, so going back to this, what I'm going to do is at this level here, I'm going to add a new group. And if this actually happens where you actually add a new group and it doesn't allow you to change the name, if you kind of click on it once, okay, you should be able to change the name again. So I'm going to type the word fonts. Now you may be wondering, well, I'm only using one font, so why fonts? Well, I may decide to add another font for a different purpose, okay? So I'm just gonna call it fonts, and I've created a new group here, and you can see here, this letter here, M, okay, this M, and if I was to hover over this, you should be able to see actually what this is referring to. It means that the project has actually been modified. So this is referring to the project, okay? M means modified. So every time you actually make a change, especially when a project is under version control, you'll start seeing these letters. So M means modified, D means something's been deleted, okay, A means something's been added. So you'll be able to, you'll see these letters depending on what files you actually change. So the next thing is to actually add my font to that particular folder, right? So what I'm going to do is on my desktop here, and I'm going to click on font, and I've already downloaded the font here, and I'm going to copy, I'm just going to drag that so it just appears underneath the fonts group. And I'll drop it there, and then I'm also going to select copy items if needed, okay, and at the same time adding it to the target. So obviously the first part will copy the font to the project, so that's kind of given. You should be able to understand that. But this add to target is very important that you do this, because when the project, when you compile the project, and if you don't select on this, then it won't actually add the font to the compiled version of your project. So you need to make sure that this is selected, so when you actually compile the project, that it's actually, the font is packaged at the same time and it's added to this particular target, which is the app itself. So I'm going to click on finish, and you can see here that the font's been added, and we see an A symbol here. It means that something has actually been added. If I was to hover over that, you should be able to see that it says added. Just try to get that here. Okay, let's see here. No, is the tooltips are not appearing for some reason, but anyway, A means something's been added. Okay. The next thing we want to do, we've added the font. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we configure the font within the actual project. So here we need to go to the info.plist, and what we want to do is we want to click on this right arrow here. Okay. Oh, sorry, we need to click on this plus button here. Okay, this plus button here, it will allow you to add a key, and we need to search for capital F-O-N-T, so fonts provided by application. Okay, fonts provided by application, and we actually select that. Okay, once we've done that, we expand this new key and item 0. Now remember, this is an array, you can see here, and all arrays, the count starts from 0. So the first item in the list, as far as the array is concerned, is item number 0. And this is a string. Now, I always like to, I'm just going to double click on here. This is where we actually put in the name of the font. I always like to, because this has got a space, I always like to put in kind of quotations here, right, just to make sure that it's not going to have any problems. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the name of the font as it is. Now, maybe what we can do is, let's just kind of delete that, and we'll just kind of copy it. So I'm single click on this, right? I'm going to copy the name. So it's not copying the file extension, just the name. And then I'm going to go back to info.plist and just kind of double click here and quotations. Okay, and remember that we need to add the extension, which is .ttf. In this case, you see here, it's a .ttf file. Press enter there. So supposedly now our font has actually been configured, and I'm just going to run a quick test, okay, just to make sure that it works. So I'm going to go to my storyboard, and the easiest way to do it is to add a label. Okay, so let's just add a label to our project, and what I'm going to do is just kind of expand this. Okay, expand this and just expand it further. And here we should be able to select our font from the list. So we go to font here, click on this, and then click on custom. Okay, and then the family, it's called patchwork, right? Patchwork. Here, patchwork stitchlings. Okay, so it doesn't look like the font from within the list, but let's just see. If we click on this, does it actually give us a good sample font? There you go. Okay, so you can see here that it has configured itself properly and it does work as expected. So I don't really need this label anymore. I'm just going to remove it, okay, because the label has nothing to do with the font configuration. So you can see here now that we're ready. Okay, we're ready to actually work on committing and pushing these changes. So what we've done so far is we've created a branch which is local. We've made the change to our project, whatever we wanted to do. We've added a feature. In this case, it's adding a font, and we're ready to do a commit now. So what I'm going to do is click on the source control menu and click on commit. Okay, so it tells you everything that's actually changed with the project here. Now, the first thing you need to do, or first thing you need to be mindful of, is that you need to, before you can actually do a commit, you will need to write or type in a commit message. Okay, so the commit message needs to reflect accurately what you've done, what this commit represents. So, and there's a way to actually write commit messages. So if you follow this, if you follow along, you should be okay. Follow along using this kind of routine convention that I'm using, and you should be okay. So I'm just going to say configured font. Okay, this is the title of the commit message, and then I'm just going to add a 2 spaces. Okay, so I'm just going to press enter twice, making sure that there's a blank line between our commit message, and here you start kind of indicating exactly what you did. So what I did was I added a font group. I added a font group, and I also kind of imported the font into font group. And then finally, kind of configured my property list with new new font entry. Okay, so here these are the exact things that I've done. Okay, and it kind of makes sense to me because these are all the things that I've done, and I want to make sure that I actually have a running history of all of the commits. So that is the commit message. You made sure that all of the things that have changed are selected here. And then you want to, at the same time, make sure that you click on push to remote. If you were to just click on commit now, the commit would be just locally on this computer. You can go and do the commit from the source control menu. Okay, so let's just say you forgot to click on this and you've done the commit and it's got rid of the screen and it's registered it as a commit. You can click on source control and push. Okay, and that will push the changes to your remote repository. But why not do it from here? We have the same option here. So make sure you click on that. And one thing that you're going to notice here is it selects the actual current branch that you're on. You don't necessarily need to change this. I don't suggest you change the branch, okay? But if you actually notice here, it says origin, configure font, and then it says CRE. Now CRE, if I was to click on this, it actually says create. Remember, we created the branch locally, right? And it's detecting that branch does not exist online. So it's saying for the first time that this actually needs to be created. We don't want to change it to a different branch. We want to basically use the same branch, make sure that it's selected, and I'm just going to hit commit, 4 files, and push. And let's see what happens. So a few things are happening. It's registering that, it's creating a snapshot. It's registering that snapshot with the commit history, and it's adding that commit to the running history as far as version control is concerned for this project. If I was to go back to the version control on GitHub, my repository, you can see automatically here, right? It tells you here that you created a new branch less than a minute ago. And if I was to refresh this page, you'll see that this number here actually changes to say 2 branches. Okay, so you can see here now, if I was to click on that, I've got master and I've got configured font. Okay, and it gives me a running kind of history as far as exactly what I've done. If I was to go back to here, and you can see here, it gives me what commits I've actually done. This is on the master, but if I was to switch to the configure font, it tells you exactly what's happened. And this is the commit message. Remember the commit message that you actually included, it's here. Okay, so that's the second part where I've committed the changes, I've created a snapshot, and I've pushed those changes to a specific branch. Now I want to merge these changes. I'm happy. My functionality works great. I've tested it. Multiple people have looked over it, and it's fantastic. And I want to make this change. I want to bring it in now to my master branch. Okay, so this is the process for this. Really, you should be discussing this with me first before you actually do this. Okay, so just kind of speak to me first so I can just make sure that things are okay, because remember, you don't want to corrupt your master branch, right? Going back to what we said about it always be working and always should function. It may be a little bit behind as far as the features are concerned, but again, it should be working. Right now, our master branch is a little bit behind as far as our, or in comparison to our configure font branch. So what we want to do is we want to bring those changes, take those changes from the configure branch, font branch, and bring those in and merge them with the master branch. So again, I'm going to go back to Xcode, go back to version control. Okay, if I was to switch again to master, you right click on the master branch and you click on checkout. Once you've done that, providing you don't have any outstanding commits, it should just switch over to the new branch without any problems. So we're on the master branch now. You can see here, if I was to go back to the source control, the project control navigator, the project navigator, you'll notice that the font folder doesn't exist, and that is as expected, because remember, we didn't do this change. We didn't make the change on the master branch. We did it on a different branch. So what we want to do is we want to go back to our source control navigator. We want to right click on the configure font branch. Remember, this is no longer our active branch. And we want to click on the option merge configure font into master. Remember, it shouldn't be the other way around. You shouldn't be merging your master into another branch. You want to merge a branch into the master. So make sure I click on that. And providing there's no conflicts, it should just do it quite happily. And then it says here, you have an arrow here and one, and it says here that you're one commit ahead, meaning that the local repository is one commit ahead of the remote repository. Remember, this change, this merge that we've done right now, it doesn't exist remotely yet. In order to make it exist remotely, all we need to do is click on the source control menu and hit push. Once we've done that, it's going to push the change to the master branch, and just give it a few moments. There you go, the one disappears, and now master has been updated with the font. So if I was to go back to the repository on GitHub, and if I was to switch to the master branch, remember this didn't include the font before. If I click on this and click on the code here, you see fonts has been added as a folder to the master branch. Okay, so we've actually gone through an entire cycle, a version control cycle of creating a new branch from the master, making changes to our project, committing those changes and pushing them to a specific branch. Remember, you should be doing committing and pushing regularly. And then finally, once we've pushed the changes and we've tested out changes on our branch, make sure everything is working okay, the final step is to do a merge. And we've merged our branch we've merged the branch that we created into our master. Okay, so that's a full cycle, full version control cycle as far as Xcode is concerned. I hope that that explains and really clarifies how you actually use version control from within Xcode. You probably will have some questions, and I'm happy to address those questions whenever you raise them. Okay, so I'm just going to end this video now, and please approach me if you have any questions.